Welcome back to the Comeback Lab. This is your host, Dr. Melanie Worley. Today's guest is Alyssa McElheny, an Elite 15 HYROX athlete and accomplished endurance runner with a 2:34 marathon personal best. She's become one of the top names in HYROX through her incredible engine, race execution, and resilience as an athlete. In this episode, we dive into her journey back to the elite level after battling a proximal hamstring injury, including how platelet-rich plasma played a role in her recovery and return to performance. We also discuss HYROX training, balancing strength and endurance, recovery strategies, and what it takes to truly compete at the highest level of the sport. I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, so welcome back to the Comeback Lab podcast. I'm really excited to welcome Alyssa today, Elite 15 HYROX athlete and elite marathoner. We're going to just jump right in. First, just want to hear how you got into endurance running, and then how you transitioned from that to competing in the elite level at HYROX.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. Super excited to chat today. So I've been a runner for 22 years. Started when I was in middle school. At that point, I wasn't serious. It was mostly just to be with friends, and because it was something I was good at. I continued to run throughout high school and college. Would do, especially into college, kind of peak out at 60-mile weeks. And I did the steeplechase in college. That was really fun. Finished All-American. But yeah, I never saw myself dabbling in the marathon. That was never on my list. So graduated college, and I think was just feeling that missing that competitive part of my life, as a lot of people do. You're done with high school sports or college sports, and you're kind of what now? I have to go race every weekend, right? I think I very prematurely and naively signed up for a marathon, not knowing what it would take. I didn't fuel at all. I trained, I maybe did a 16-mile run a couple times. Just had no idea the demands of the event. I went out really hard and paid for it, died at mile 22, and actually didn't finish my first marathon.
Oh, wow.
So that was right after college. Yeah, 2014. And then really took a few years off of the sport of endurance running. I would run with high school track and field and cross country. So I would run with those kids, and have that kind of be my run for the day, and it would just be happy and fun. I think that was what my brain and body needed, in order to kind of get back into the sport a few years later in a really serious way. Started in 2015. I kind of dove back into the competitive marathoning side of the sport, and have not looked back since until HYROX.
And what was your first marathon that you finished that time versus how you got your time down to the 2:34 OTQ time?
Yeah, it's been a process. In 2015, I believe I ran 2 marathons. It was Houston and Richmond, Virginia, and both of those were 2:52s. Trying to hit the 2:45 big trial standard at the time, and didn't quite do it, and that a huge bummer. But decided to stick on it and try again. No, that was not yet. So they dropped the standard later. So it was still 2:45, I believe, for the 2020 Olympic trials. Tried again and failed a couple times, I think at CIM, and then I can't remember what the other one would be, but there was another marathon in there somewhere. And then, they dropped the standard to 2:37, continued to just stick my nose in it, and, got coaching and got the support of a local run team here in Michigan, Gazelle Elite, through our local run specialty store, Gazelle Sports. And that was kind of the magic bullet for me. You have the support of, an entire, a coaching staff and a team and teammates and brands. And that was really helpful in terms of being able to put all the pieces together, fueling, support, coaching. And then in the fall of 2025, so 6 months ago, was able to run 2:34 with my Gabby at the Indianapolis Marathon, and qualified for Olympic trials. So we did it.
So a long road, long process, and obviously having that support really helped, which is good. I know about the Olympic trial times dropping just because when I got the 2:56,
I was trying to eye from, oh, maybe I could go to 245. But then as soon as they dropped it down to 237, I was like, okay, I think that's a little out of my wheelhouse. But because they had
Oh,
over
I
like
feel like
500.
yeah. No, yes, I think so many women same boat, like 245 is, it's there, it's close. And then to drop it
Mhm,
8 minutes was just like
I know. Yeah, they had around 500 women that ran in the trials in Atlanta right before COVID hit. I was there because I had a couple friends that were in the trials. So I was watching it, and it inspired me a lot to try to hit the goal. But then, yeah, then they dropped it recently after that race, and I was like, oh man, what a bummer. But um, so
yeah.
yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit um, about what do you think kind of separates elite athletes from everyone else when you get to that elite level?
Yeah, I mean, I run with so many different like kinds of runners and people here in Grand Rapids. Like I host a run club every Monday night and,
Mhm,
end up running with people that are, you know, once a week runners, running with people that are, every single day, have big goals, um, brand new to the sport, have been in the sport for, 15 years. Um, and I honestly, something I'm always really curious about is that, not everybody gets to live the elite athlete life per se.
mhm,
Um, like your paid professionals are sleeping 10 hours a night, they're napping during the day, they're getting in 2 sessions, they have
mhm,
access to PT and massage, a lot of nutrition help. They're paid to do it, that's their job. So yeah, I'm always kind of yeah, I think a lot of people would be very curious to be able to live that elite athlete life. I
mhm,
really even haven't been able to live that fully. I have a very flexible schedule, so like I'm able to do a lot of those things.
mhm,
But yeah, I think it comes down to like there's a lot of resources that resources and like lifestyle things that elite athletes have access to that the general population generally doesn't. And obviously, elite athletes are where they are for a reason. They're extremely talented. They're really hardworking. They have that
mhm.
mindset. But yeah, it's more than that.
Right, yeah. Lots of factors playing a role. And so, how much of success at your level would you say is mental versus physical?
I think it used to be more physical, but I think I've learned as of late that like so much of it is in my brain. Um,
Mhm,
I used to have a really hard time like sustaining. Uh, I would go out really hard in a 5K or 10K, and then have a hard time sustaining that pace and kind of fade towards the end. Same with like a HYROX race.
mhm.
I found really in wall balls like it's really easy to like get in your head about it and to think about how your
Yes.
body's feeling. You can, yeah, right.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
those are my
yeah,
that's my weakness. So,
yeah, as they are for a lot of people. Um, but yeah, I think I've learned in the last, honestly, like maybe couple years, that so much of it is how use your brain to trick your body into doing what it needs to
mhm,
do. Whether it's like for me, a lot of it's like smiling when I race. A lot of it's like telling myself, during wall balls, like I have let's say I have 50 wall balls to go. Like, let's just get through 10 more. Like, we're only going to 60, then we're stopping. Like, that's it.
mhm,
Same with racing. Like, in a 10K, like I raced this past weekend. I got to 5K and I was like, all right, we're doing one more mile. Like, we're not thinking about the full 10K yet. We're doing one more mile. And then from
mhm,
there, we can like reassess. I feel like those little like mental games, mental tricks are so important to like how you do get through those wall balls. You do get through that race.
mhm.
Makes all the difference.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful breaking it apart. Also, yeah, I think a lot of people notice you smiling pretty much the whole race through Warsaw. So I'm going to try that coming up in New York City and see if that helps me PR. So
Yeah,
how do you?
okay, yes,
Oh,
even, like I mean, so I think there's something to be said for, like, how your brain and your body, like, work together in terms of if you're
mhm,
smiling, like, I had someone, message me the other day, like, that's what, like, Eliud Kipchoge does, like, he smiles and it tricks his brain into being like, "Oh, we're in a good place, we're happy," and then also, like, I feel like it comes back to you when you engage with you smile at someone in the crowd, they're more
mhm,
likely to cheer you on, it's just big, like, it just keeps rolling, So, all
yep.
the above.
So how do you balance pushing hard in training while still staying healthy?
Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah, that's so difficult. I'm definitely the type of athlete that, like, if I'm not held back, I would probably be my worst enemy. So having people around me that help me recover well, help me, stay in check with the amount of work I'm doing. So I'd say for me, it's a myriad of people. Like on the coaching side, like my coach Joe Sobolski, like he's talked to me since like from the beginning of our training that like we could go really hard right now. Like it- a lot of coaches would get greedy and want to do more, more, more. But like
Mhm,
this is the long game. We're playing this game for a few years. Like now is not the time to like try and delve in and get really, really like yeah, for lack of a better word, greedy with training. So yeah, we've been measured with that. Um, I'd say my husband Daniel really helps me um like focus on recovery. Things like, it's a Saturday and I feel the need to like get in a run. He's like, "No, you know what? Today would be better to just not run." Like for your
mhm,
brain, for your body, like just not. And so he's a really good voice and presence in my life in that way. And then
mhm.
my mom, really helpful in terms of like making sure I eat enough during the day. I see her a lot. And she's always checking in. I'm like, do you need me to get you any food? Like, have you had breakfast today? So just having those like different voices and presences in my life, really help to, keep me on the right track in terms of balance of work and recovery. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's good. So this is a good segue to kind of talk a little bit more about injury now, since we were discussing how you stay healthy. And for those listening, I'm a sports medicine doctor that specializes in non-surgical orthopedics, particularly platelet-rich plasma, and bone marrow concentrate stem cell injections to help people avoid surgery. So I had reached out to Alyssa because she actually had PRP for an injury. So I thought it would be really cool to get an elite athlete perspective on what that's like, and what the recovery is like. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more now. So could you talk a little bit about when you realized that your proximal hamstring injury started to become an issue for you?
definitely. I feel like I've talked about this injury just like in such a like very like surface 30-second
Mhm,
quick way. I'm actually kind of excited to like talk about it a little more.
mhm,
This is perfect.
mhm,
So yeah, this was let's see, the summer of 2024. I was doing a lot of mileage. I had just run the Ottawa Marathon in,
mhm,
I believe it was May of 2024, and had run like 30 seconds off of the Olympic trials time, which was like, say I ran like 2:37:30. I was like, oh my gosh, I just need 30 more seconds. Like I can totally do this. We're here. We've arrived. Great. Um, and then spent that summer doing a lot of mileage, a lot of the same motion over and over, a lot of repetition, really kind of got away from any sort of strength work. I think that
mhm,
was kind of my biggest mistake. Um, Towards the end of the summer, I took a trip with my mom to Italy, and I think that's when I started to feel something.
mhm,
So yeah, like that upper hamstring where it like inserts into the sit bone, like, I especially going up hills, I was like, "Something's, like, not fully helping me out here." Like, something's a little different. It wasn't this, like, searing pain. It was just like, I don't have my full, like, oomph, like, going up these hills.
mhm,
And that just kinda continued and continued, into the fall. I think I tried some PT things, we tried to diagnose it as, something I could fix with strength work, um, and nothing really helped. It would just did, really focused on, like, glute activation before running. Um, yeah, tried a variety of, like, different exercises pre-run, during run, and,
mhm,
like, nothing. It just kinda got worse. It got junky after long runs. Yeah, it would just be really angry for the next couple
mhm,
days. So finally, I mean, I signed up to run CIM, California International Marathon, in December of that year, and I ran
mhm.
it.
With the
Didn't
hamstring
didn't
injury?
go Yeah, so it didn't go
Okay.
terribly, but also, like, didn't go well. Like, I ran, I think, 4 minutes slower than I had run that
Mhm,
spring in Ottawa. So
mhm,
after that, I was like, "Okay, like, I'm not gonna keep this like, this is I clearly am, like, limited in how I can run. I don't have the same power that I have when I'm healthy." And
mhm,
so decided I'm gonna take a month off of running. So took December into January off of running and was kind of, like, fingers crossed that this will solve my issue.
Mhm.
Literally, like the first day I came back to running, like the first step I took, I knew immediately that it was the exact same. So like a month off of running, a month off of, I really didn't even cross train. I just kind of like let my body be, didn't help. So that was really frustrating. Just not really knowing what it was. Um, and then I had a friend of mine, her name's Josie, her husband Garrett is an orthopedic surgeon in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he referred me to a doctor here, Dr. Axman,
Mhm.
um, who specializes in PRP, works with a lot of elite level athletes. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I'll take a meeting. I'll try anything. Like, just get
Mhm.
rid of this. Like, I was to the point where I honestly was feeling that I would be happy never PRing again. I'd be happy never racing again. I'd be happy never like running to the level that I knew I could run ever again. I just wanted to like run and not be in pain. Like that was
Mhm.
like all and so yeah, I was willing to try anything. I knew
Yeah.
nothing about PRP. I still
Mhm.
feel like it's a pretty um I don't run across a lot of people that have had it. I don't know, it's still feels pretty new to me. I don't
Yeah.
know. uh,
That's funny that you
so
say that. I think it's becoming more common, but I'm on the West Coast currently, and I feel like out here it's a little bit more popular or more people are aware of it. And I'm from the Midwest and can speak to that as well. I think that maybe they're just a little bit behind on getting on board, but I think you'll start to see more and more of it as we
yeah.
continue to get the word out and educate more. I think it's really important that people are aware of these non-surgical options. Because there's so many ways to
Oh,
help without surgery. And so it sounds like you did try pushing through it for several months. Obviously, it wasn't getting better. And then I wanted to touch on you mentioned how you took a month off and it basically felt the same. And that's helpful for athletes to know about because tendons actually respond to load. And so when we just kind of drastically deload them, they actually won't really get better. So it's better to actually continue some kind of run volume to still load the tendon but not fully drop off, if that makes sense. So that's a good point that you made too. So tell us a little bit
yeah.
more about like what the recovery process was like for you. How did the injection go, and what was the recovery process like?
Yeah. So yeah, met with Dr. Axman. Before I met with him, I had talked to other doctors, and a lot of them had kind of mentioned or recommended like steroid injections. And the
Mhm.
second I mentioned that to Dr. Axman, he was like, "No, like
No,
we are not
yeah.
doing that." Like, he's like, "If you were just like
Mm.
wanting to like get to this one competition in a couple weeks, and we needed you to feel better like that, like we would do it. But like you
Mhm.
want to be a long term, healthy, elite level athlete, like the last thing I want to do is just keep inserting steroids into that area." Like how he explained it to
Mhm.
me is like it's just gonna make everything weaker long term and deteriorate. I know
Correct.
nothing about medicine, but that's how my brain took it.
No, you're right.
So
Steroids are not good. Yeah, they can actually cause tendon rupture. And we know, like from studies for knee arthritis, they're injected frequently, but they actually can progress people to a knee replacement faster. They're considered chondrotoxic, which is just a fancy term for it's bad for our cartilage. So I'm glad that you know about that because more people need to be aware of that too.
yeah, again, like I think my overall feeling with this whole process was just like it wasn't a quick fix, but like that's why it worked.
Hmm.
So yeah, met with Dr. Axman, felt super confident in who he was and what he did. The way he talked about, priorities and like what we want to achieve and not being in it for the short term and like as long as you're in this for like the long haul, like this is gonna be a good thing. So yeah, just I was sold. I think it was like in April of 2024 that I had the PRP done. I didn't know what to expect. I hate needles, so that was great. Yeah, you come into the room and they put you in these like big old paper shorts and
Hmm.
yeah, extract a bunch of blood and put it all back in. Yeah, spin it in like the centrifuge, put it all back in.
Hmm.
I definitely passed out. I think it was even after the whole procedure was done. I think it was just like, again, I really dislike needles and I think I was just like really tense and anxious. And so like maybe 5 minutes after the procedure was done, I was sitting there talking to him and He's like, "You look a little white." I was like, "Yep, feeling white," and just done. But other than that, great. I remember it being really the area being like really sore and tender for a couple days.
Mhm.
He's like, "That's what you expect. Like, we just put a bunch of stuff into that area that it's not used to. Like, it's going to be a little like angry and inflamed." Um, so that was my first like couple days with it. After that, it really wasn't an issue. Um, so yeah, his recommendation post procedure was that I take 6 weeks off of all lower body activity, which was really hard. Um,
Mhm.
coming from like 100-mile weeks to, sitting, and I could go to the gym and, do upper body things, like core things, but like I couldn't cross train, I couldn't bike, I couldn't swim. He
Mhm.
even during the spring coach in high school track and field and cross country, and at meets he was like, "Yep, I want you to have a chair, I want you to sit," which is so not my MO. I love to be like running across the infield cheering for my athletes, so that was really hard.
Nice.
Um, had to get used to that. So after 6 weeks, I think my biggest mistake was, I didn't really ask what was after that 6 weeks. I think I assumed that, like, the 6 weeks is done and I can start building to, like, pretty immediately, like, 30 miles a week, 40 miles a week. It'll be quick. Um, so I hopped on the phone with him after the 6 weeks, and he was like, "All right, so next week, you're running 1 mile every other day." And I was like, "What?" Excuse me. Not at all what I yeah, so I think that was actually the harder part for me is the 6 weeks
Mhm.
off was like, I knew what to expect. I didn't ask about what was after. So then it was 6 weeks of, really slow build. So it was a mile every other day. The next week was 2 miles every other day. The next week was 3 miles every other day, 4 miles every other day, all the way up to 6 miles every other day. And
Mhm.
then throughout that 6-week period, I was also, like, adding in, the first week was body weight, lower body, so I could do body weight squats. The second
Mhm.
week, we added in, like, very small weight, and then by, I think, the 6th week, it was, like, up to, like, half of what I would normally squat or half of what I would normally use for RDLs or lunges or, things like that. Um, so yeah, that was, like, the recovery protocol, and it was slow, and I was frustrated a lot. Again, he told me what to expect. He told me it would be slow and long term. He also told me that, it might feel like it's not better. He's like, "You might still
Mhm.
feel, like, residual like, this is a process that, in a year, like, every month you give it, it's gonna get better and stronger and healthier, and
Mhm.
you might not feel that for a little." And that was definitely true. Like, I think the first yeah, maybe the first, like, few runs back or even, handful of runs back, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I did this and took this time off, and it was for nothing. Like, what the heck?"
Yeah.
Um But then through, like, really slow building and, like, cautious return to running, not getting greedy, not trying to do things too quickly,
Mhm.
um, ev every week it felt better. Like, every week I had less of that pain. Every week, running up hills felt better. I had that, like, strength back and, pretty
Mhm.
equal to that. It was on my left side, equal to that right side. So, yeah, just I'm not a patient person. That was really hard, but the patience really so that yeah, that
Yeah.
was my biggest lesson through the whole like, listen to your doctors and have patience.
I think that's important to point out the patience and the timeline of the healing because PRP doesn't happen overnight. It's at least minimum 3 months, but actually up to 6 months. So, like you're describing, getting better and better over time, rather than the quick relief option with the steroid. And then another thing that's interesting, like every regenerative doctor kind of has a bit of a different protocol after PRP. I would say I would probably be a little bit more aggressive, just knowing like your elite athlete background in terms of the recovery, maybe pushing that a little bit more up front. But I do agree with taking it easy the first couple weeks, obviously, and the slow progression back to running. But yeah, everyone is a little variable on that. I've had PRP myself, and I've had it into my hamstring, so I have had a similar experience, but I've had it in a couple other areas with tendons, and they're very up and down, like you described, kind of in the beginning, where you feel like it might not be getting better. So I also warn patients about that. Was there um, a moment when you realized like you were gonna, be back at that elite level? You mentioned kind of how you would have just been happy to run again pain free. Um, But how were you able to sort of get back to that elite level after that? And also how difficult was the mental side of the injury for you?
Oof. Yeah, yes, all the above, yeah. Um, yeah, I think when you're in a community of runners, it can be a really healthy thing. It can also, when you're injured and not able to run, it can be really unhealthy. So yeah, I definitely had to like take a period where like I uninstalled like my Strava app and
Mm-hmm.
um didn't have to see again Strava can be a great thing. It can also be a negative thing. So yeah, it kind of took away that comparison factor for a few months. Um, yeah, I think my coach was great and like we communicate weekly. His name's Sam Butler. He's again just was really helpful with like either keeping me at bay or like if there's times I needed to be pushed to like try a workout that was a little scary to me at the time. He was there. It was super helpful. I feel like I really returned to like my normal volume of running maybe by like fall of 2024. Didn't race at all. I think I was kind of nervous to get back into it just because I mean if anyone out there is a runner and has had to take any time off because of an injury, that return to running can be really scary and putting yourself back out in the race course can be really scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a little bit of a pride issue there, you know, I don't want to come back and run a time that's slower than what I should be running, which is just dumb, but that's where your brain goes because we're human. Yeah. So yeah, I really had no data points as to like how I was doing recovery wise. I guess I could tell that like there were some workouts that were going pretty well. That winter I did spend a lot of time indoors on the treadmill though, and I think part of me was like, that felt good because it was on the treadmill and like treadmill running is easier than outdoor running.
Mm-hmm.
I think January of 25 that my coach approached me and was like, all right, so we're racing this spring. I was like, oh my God. Okay, fine. And I was like, let's do a half marathon. Like, I don't really care what one, but like, let's do a half. I feel like that'd be a good way to like slowly get back into it and not be too scary. Um, and pretty instantly he was like, no, I think we should do a full. I think we should like see where we're at. It took me a while to come around to it, but I was like, fine, we'll
Mm-hmm.
do a full. I don't want it to be a really big marathon. I'd rather do something a little more mid-size. So we chose Glass City in Toledo, Ohio, which
Yay.
um
Mhm.
but yeah, woo, let's go home. Um,
That's
was
where I'm
great.
from
Like
for
love
listeners.
so chose Glass City and was like fully expecting to yeah, throughout this whole time, the hamstring was just feeling great, better, better, better. No issues there whatsoever. So that was, I think, a huge part of it too, confidence wise.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I went into Glass City expecting like if I could run, you know, within a couple minutes of a PR, I'd be so happy. So that for me, that would be like 2:39. Like that would have been a
Mm-hmm.
good day. Mm. Got into the race and like pretty quickly was like feeling really comfortable at like that kind of six flat pace, which does lead to like a 2:37-ish marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, had a great like a group of couple guys near me that were super helpful. Really had in the past year had worked on dialing in on fueling. I think that was really helpful as well. Was able to have a couple bottles out in the course and was able to take in a lot of carbs, which I think was an absolute game changer for me. Hadn't really done that super well in the past. Um, and then ended up having a really good day and running like just a completely consistent marathon and finished at 2:35:30 or something. So a minute and a half under the time that I needed and was just like floored. Like
Mm-hmm.
crossed the line and like eye contact with my coach and was just like, what the heck? Like I had no idea that that's where I would be, had no idea that like I was in that kind of shape. Just like all the emotions of like that whole PRP journey was just completely worth it and was completely the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
It was like such a positive emotional day. If you're in the midst of an injury and like you feel like this is it and you know I'll never come back, like if you're patient and like you do the right PT and you do the right recovery and you give it time, it can definitely be that like return to better or as good as you used to be. I don't know. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big believer in that. So it was a great day.
Yeah, that's amazing to come back that strong. And it sounds like you basically didn't race for almost a year and a half, correct? Like since the PRP.
Yeah.
So it just shows you the process of what it takes to get back to the elite level if you are coming back from an injury. So I think that's helpful. Do you wish that you would have addressed the injury sooner looking back, like not maybe push through as much?
Definitely. Yeah,
Hmm.
100%. To me, like an endurance athlete like thing, I'll try something else. Like, oh, it's not that bad. I'll be fine. I can run through it. But yeah, like 100% I had PRP in the spring of 24. If I had to go back, I think I probably would have had it done in the fall of 23. It's like
Hmm.
almost a half a year early. But yeah, I mean, we're all stubborn and you think, I don't need to spend the money. I can get more into strength work, or I can lessen my mileage, or like the most injuries that aren't just gonna like disappear magically. Like if you've,
Yeah.
made a tendon angry, it's probably not just gonna decide to not be angry. So
Hmm. Yeah, sometimes you need that extra help from an expert, and tendons have poor blood supply too. So that's why PRP is so helpful. Um, okay, so now I just want to kind of close out with a couple HYROX questions. I appreciate you sharing your injury journey. I think it's really helpful, and love to hear these stories as a sports doctor who also competes in what you do. So, all right, so what's your favorite HYROX station?
ooh, favorite high rock station. I'm gonna go with besides the running, I'll go with sled push. Yeah, I've from the second I've tried the stations, which was like for the first time in November of 25, so like 6 months ago.
Hmm.
That's been my like I've for some reason I'm pretty good at it right off the bat. It's also one that I feel like doesn't someone will probably like disagree with this, but I don't think it requires that much. Like obviously you want to like, be getting low and have your torso like horizontal to the ground, but like,
Hmm.
a lot of the other things like burpee broad jump, there's like a million little pieces and like form things. I feel like sled push is pretty simple. um, so yeah, that's been my favorites. In the last two races I've done, I have enjoyed the wall balls. Like it feels wrong to say, but like they've been good. Part of it is like that's where it all ends, and like the crowd there is really incredible, and that's helpful.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I'll say mostly sled push, and then maybe a little bit of wall ball. Ooh.
Wow. Yeah, the wall balls, if those ever become my favorite, I'll be shocked. But so how
Let me know.
about least favorite station?
Oh, least favorite is gonna be I don't love ski for some reason.
Mhm. Me
I'm
too.
not necessarily yeah, I'm not good at it. I'm not bad at it. It's a
Mhm.
placeholder and I have hold my place during that station. Not sure what it is. Something about me doesn't like it. But then the other one that would be the hardest for me is burpee broad jump. I'm 5'10". I have like a lot of limbs. I'm
Mhm.
long. So I think like being long, that's one station where it's like a little bit of a disadvantage. Just got a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to like put on the ground and get up and put on the ground. Up. And yeah, there's a few things that like we're kind of working on right now to hopefully increase my tempo a little bit. When I jump, I tend to like land in like a deeper squat. We're trying to get rid of that waste of energy. So
Mhm.
kind of landing more on like my back foot or midfoot instead of on my toes. So there's a lot of things to change, which is helpful. But yeah, I don't once like burpee broad jump, I think a lot of people probably feel this way. Once burpee broad jumps are done, I'm like, okay.
Yes.
Like the race can go.
Yeah, it's like a sense of relief for sure. That's like one of my mental, like,
Mhm.
just get through burpees, and then I feel so much more free. Um, and then what's your favorite recovery tool?
For me, it's probably two things. I love an Epsom salt bath. I don't
Mm.
know if it's actually scientifically um, that helpful, but whether it's placebo or whether it's actually helpful, I love
Mhm.
like sitting in Epsom salt bath for like 30 minutes post like really hard workout. Um,
Mhm.
Then the other thing I love to do, which again, also don't know if it's scientifically proven, but I love like putting my legs up the wall. So like at night or again after a hard workout, I'll just like lay on the ground, stick my legs up the wall for 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Love that. And then I'm also a big believer in if I'm able to get in a nap. I think that's sleep to me is the like best medicine. So I coach with my husband and we tell our kids like we'll be at camp in the summer and we'll tell them like so there's this like new drug that like the FDA has approved and it's legal and you can take it and it like aids performance on like the cross country course and it helps you in
Mhm.
school and like it'll make you run faster, it'll make you be smarter. Does anybody want to take it? And they're all like, yeah, I'll take it. And we're like, it's just sleeping. Like just sleep 8 hours and everything's going to go better for you, like whether it's school or like running,
Mhm,
like, so yeah, I'm a big believer in reach, but like trying to get like 8 to 9 hours every night
mhm.
really makes a difference with recovery. So
Yeah.
it's free too.
Yeah, it's the simplest form of recovery, so good point. And then, biggest what do you think is the biggest mistake newer HYROX athletes make? I mean, you are still kind of new to
Well,
HYROX, but you obviously have
I am
rose to an elite level quickly, so you're still probably, a good person to get advice from.
definitely. And I mean, I can speak to what mistakes I've made. I think my biggest two would be um, I come from a running background. That's definitely my strength. And especially compared to other women in my race, like I'm one of the faster couple runners out there. So I think there's this temptation to like take the runs really hard, like how hard I could take them. And
Mhm,
I found that because I don't quite have that mastery of a lot of the stations yet, that if I do take those runs to like the extreme, my stations will suffer for it. So we've learned to
mhm,
kind of like dial back the runs to a pace that's like relatively like quote unquote easy for me. And the stations are able to go a lot better because of that. So yeah, just maybe talking about not running to like the absolute red line so that your stations can be better for it. And
mhm,
then the second thing I would say is not fueling properly. I started off in my first couple races taking a gel before the race, and then I found that the last like 15 minutes of the race, I didn't quite have the energy I needed to like do those last couple stations to the best of my ability. So started to
mhm,
take half a gel after the row, which I hadn't, honestly, I thought about maybe taking a little earlier, but for now, that's what I've done.
mhm,
And that was super like get to wall balls and like you're still really tired, but like I felt like I had a little bit more oomph to keep going through wall balls and not just feel completely like dizzy and out of myself. So
mhm,
it's yeah, the taking the runs at like an appropriate pace and then making sure you're fueling appropriately, whether it's before the race or like taking something during, can be really helpful.
mhm. And then, what's your current goal right now in HYROX with Worlds coming up?
Yeah, I mean, we're like I think like a month away, which is kind of
Yeah.
wild. Um, let's see, that just makes my stomach go like, ooh. um, I I've got some pretty lofty goals. Some of them pertain to this season, and some of them pertain to next season and the season after. Um,
Mhm,
I think the biggest one for me is staying healthy and continuing to like love the sport and take a lot of joy from the sport. If those things don't happen, then I don't know what I'm doing. Like why are we here if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing? So that's the biggest one, overarching, more important than any other performance goals. But in terms of performance, I would love to be on that podium in Stockholm. That would be a big goal for me. Um,
mhm,
how far I am behind number one, number two, whatever. I'm not quite sure about that one yet. But then in upcoming seasons, like I'd love to be the best out there. I've had such a short runway into this sport that I feel like I have such an upside. Still have
mhm,
a lot to master with the stations and figuring out how this all works. So yeah, really excited to see what like a good chunk of like just serious training in the summer could do for me. Yeah, really excited about where we're going.
mhm. Yeah, I'm excited to watch, and I'm sure we'll see you up there soon on the podium. So, and then last question for you: what would you tell athletes who feel like injuries holding them back right now? Um,
Yeah, I think something that you asked me during this podcast really like struck a note with me. Um,
mhm,
you asked like, would you have gotten PRP sooner? And I think that might be where like I want to touch on is that like, yeah, don't don't try and like fake your way through it. Like I had a friend
mhm,
recently, it's actually the person that got me into High Rocks. His name's Noah. He was doing a CrossFit workout and was like climbing a rope and dislocated his shoulder. Um, and then for a couple, I think almost maybe a couple months, he kind of tried to like, still work out and like do the things he could do, but ultimately knew that he needed surgery. So decided, maybe it must have been like a month ago now to finally like do the surgery, stop just like trying to make do and like trying to make things work that weren't really working. Got the surgery. And yeah, like now you have to sit through that, downtime and that's frustrating, but like I feel like it's so much more important to like yeah, get it done sooner, and then you're going to be back and ready to go sooner instead of just trying to like fake your way through that middle ground of, I'm kind of injured. I've seen that in my own experience and also in the experience of friends. So yeah, be proactive, get the surgery or get the procedure or get the, whatever you need to do to be back to your sport, full force. And I understand fully that that's frustrating because it means waiting, but it's worth it.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I thought this conversation was really great, really helpful, I think, for listeners, anyone interested in HYROX, running, but also coming back from injury. So thanks so much for being a guest today, and we're all rooting for you at Worlds.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you.